Hi everyone, and welcome again to the second part of our Inversions series. In this part of the explanation, as I said in the previous video, we will cover the next 4 types of inversions. Hopefully, by the end of the video, you will be able to use them and to understand how they work. Now we're going to start with inversions with adverbs of place or movement. Now, when an adverb is put at the beginning, the whole verb phrase can be put before the subject. Now, this is also called fronting, and we would do it like this. In a sentence like, the spy came through the window, we can say, through the window came the spy. So as you can see, with this type of inversion, apart from bringing the adverbs at the beginning, we bring the whole verb phrase together with the adverb. And at the end, we leave the subject. So through the window came the spy, the subject. Or the sentence, 300 men would stand in the past, which become in the past would stand 300 men. Now, again, as we've said before in the previous slides, in the previous video, we do this for dramatic purposes, and this is very, very common in written style when, especially in stories and the like, when we introduce a new noun or a new character to the story. So it's very advisable to use this when you're writing that sort of composition. And of course, this is really, really common with words like here and there. And also smaller adverbials, prepositions, especially prepositions, as I said before, of place or movement. Okay? Well, there's an exception. There's something that we must take into account when we're using inversions with adverbs of place or movement. And it's when in our sentence we have a pronoun, not a noun phrase, but a pronoun. For example, these are the inversions that we've seen before. There sat my father. Adverbial, verb phrase, and subject. Or on ran the races. The subject at the end. I opened the box and out jumped a puppy. Now, what happened when we use a pronoun? Now, it's very important to remember that the pronoun must be before the verb and not afterwards, like in the case of noun phrase. So have a look at the board on the right. There sat my father, would become there he sat. We don't say there sat he. No, there he sat. On ran the races, which become on they run. Out jumped a puppy, out it jumped. Okay? So remember that because it's a very, very common mistake when we're writing inversions with adverbs of place or movement. Now, to make it more clear, this is probably too comprehensive, but if you want, you can have a look at these rules and base yourself on this in order to know when exactly you need to use the fronting. This is to put the adverb at the beginning of the clause and do the inversion, or when you use fronting simply, you put the adverb at the beginning, but you don't invert the order subject verb. So when do we use inversion? Now, when the main verb is the verb to be, or when we're talking about a verb implying place or movement, like these ones, for example. All right. However, when do we not use or change the position or use inversion with fronting? Well, when the verb is transitive, that means when it takes an object, when the subject is a pronoun, as we've said before, when a transitive verb is followed by an adverb of manner, slowly or happily, with verbs other than those of place and movement, and with continuous tenses. Again, these rules are really, really comprehensive, and you don't need to learn this by heart. Probably the most important case is this one, when the subject is a pronoun. Remember that we would say, on they ran, there he sat. But, well, there are some other examples in which we wouldn't do an inversion, and we would only do the fronting, like put the adverb at the beginning. In order to clarify this, I have included certain examples of the previous rules, and with a note. Each of them contain a note explaining why we use inversion or why do we not use inversion. Okay, so if you want, you can pause the video, analyze the examples, and go back and forth as many times as you need. Right, I think we're ready to move on to the next slide, the next type, which is consequences of adjectives. These are inversions basically with so and such. They're quite well known. We've been using them for a while now. In this case, what we do is to include so. In the case of so, we include an adjective, and afterwards we change the normal, as we know already, subject-verb order. And finally, we use that to describe how that particular something affected us and what the consequence was. So have a look at this. So beautiful was she that I fell in love immediately, right? That would be an example with so. So beautiful, so plus an adjective. We invert the verb and subject. Then we use that, and finally we explain the consequence of her being so beautiful. Okay, and then with such, we normally use such as a noun. If you remember, would be such a beautiful woman was she. Such a beautiful woman was she. That is the same logics. I fell in love immediately. Okay, so that would be a good example of how to use so and such with inversions. Now we're going to move on to the next type, comparative clauses, when we use inversions with comparative clauses. Now have a look at the board, the first sentence. John speaks Chinese, Lucy does too. Now when you compare actions, we normally use as. Remember, you don't use like. This is something that we've already said in class. And then we invert the normal subject-verb order as usual, as in any other type of inversion. So John speaks Chinese, Lucy does too, would become John speaks Chinese as does Lucy, right? And apart from comparative clauses with as, we can simply use inversions with normal, ordinary comparative clauses. For example, a sentence like love is more important than money. If we want to make it more emphatic, and if we want to, to make emphasis by using this comparative, we can use an inversion and say, bring this part of the sentence to the beginning, more important than money, then the verb, then the subject. More important than money is love. All right? Again, the purpose is exactly the same. What we're doing is to make more emphasis, right? And finally, we're going to talk about exclamations and wishes. Now, imagine a sentence such as, man, how cold it is out, or how hungry I am. So that can be, we can even make more emphasis if we say, man, is it cold out? Or am I hungry? So we could kind of give it the form of a question, but because questions are inversions actually. And this way we can make emphasis by using an inversion. All right? With exclamation. Is it cold out? Am I hungry? So that's your making emphasis. And finally, you could make wishes. This is more typically used in greetings, sympathy cards, songs, films, and even sometimes in negative wishes. Now, on the board on the right, you have different examples that you might have heard in the past somewhere. Now, may all your wishes come true. That's a very typical expression that we would use in greeting cards and the like. Or may she rest in peace, for example, in case of someone being passed away. May you have a long and fruitful life. Or this famous quote, may the force be with you. Or the lyrics from the song from God Save the Queen, long may she reign, when talking about the Queen. Or, with regards to negative wishes, we could even say, may he rot in hell. So all of these are examples of wishes using inversions. Well, that's all for me, and that's all for inversions. Hopefully after these 2 videos you will have understood how inversions work. You can go back and forth now and revise the explanation, jot down every single word, every single doubt you might have, and we will try and sort them out in class. Congratulations for having get through the end, and we're done. That's it. See you in class. Bye.